Raisen Fort. I'll show you how this fort in the heart of India is a haunted fort with actual evidence. So watch on. Stones are stories. If only walls could talk, I'd be talking to walls all day long and would still be invited to birthday parties. Anyway, local legends will tell you that this, the Raisen Fort, is a haunted fort. Let's examine this. Earliest records of the Raisen Fort in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, are from 1200 AD. In the 1400s, it came under the control of the Sultan of Mandu, and then it came under Rajput control. By 1543, it came under Sher Shah Suri, and after that, it came under the Mughals. Faiz Muhammad Khan, the third Nawab of Bhopal, ruled over the Raisen Fort in 1760, and later he was recognized as Faujdar by Emperor Alamgir II. With 4 separate palaces within this fort, imagine how it must have been in its full glory, when the walls were strong, the floors were carpeted, when women lived and children grew up here. Made of sandstone, Raisen Fort has more than 40 wells to provide enough water. There are cave paintings around it from really ancient times and all of that. But the reason it is widely visited is because popular legend says Raisen Fort is a haunted fort. So how is it haunted? The Philosopher's Stone, the stone that can turn anything into gold or make you defy death or something like that. While it's obviously mythical, sadly, not everyone can differentiate between myth and history, as is evidenced by a lot of visitors who say the Philosopher's Stone is real and it's here. So the myth about Raisen Fort is that a long time ago, as it always is, there was a king who ruled over the Raisen Fort and its region, and he actually had this Philosopher's Stone with him. And to protect it, he hid it somewhere in the fort before he died. And that is the reason why this fort is talked about much. The myth of the Philosopher's Stone being here is what excites most people. It's these throbbing spasms of cheap thrills that overtake real history, the real stories of courage and defeat and power that played out here, which shaped the destiny of so much of this country. But all of that real information is thrown out of the window just to make space for silly tales that are spun just to make an otherwise boring, sad life feel fun and adventurous just for a few moments. But this is dangerous. You see, our past matters. We are a result of the real stories that played out here, and when we dismiss these real stories under the rug, because they're not as fun as silly myths of philosopher's stones, then we are dismissing a part of ourselves, and we are pushing our own identity under the rug. We are diminishing ourselves, and this is where a crisis of identity starts. This is where you end up with a generation that is painfully misinformed about its own history and is easily exploited by manipulative divisive powers. In the end, we are all stories, and our stories can inspire or warn the next generations. But when we are too ashamed of our own stories, what do we end up with? We don't realize how terrible these myths can be. They might seem fun in the moment, but spin enough of them, and before you know it, everyone's repeating them, and over time the new generations start believing them, and voila, one day you have a generation that thinks Mughals were ruthless invaders, Brahmins did really pop out of God's head, and eating together pollutes our food. You have a generation that is more outraged by an ad of love than by real acts of hate. History is beautiful enough. And history is important. It's who we are. Deny it, and you're denying a part of you. Stop repeating dumb myths because they're dumb, useless, and dangerous. As George Orwell said, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their own history. To know more about our real history, click subscribe, like, share, all those shenanigans, and buy me a coffee, link in the description.